Welcome to Roundhouse Roulette, a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast. Each week we recap and review one of the 200 existing Walker, Texas Ranger episodes randomly selected by Roundhouse Roulette. I'm Evan Dalton, here with my brother Adam.
What's going on?
And a man who received the President's Physical Fitness Award for the flexed arm hang, Mr. Bob Leahy.
You guys know where the gym is?
We'd like to thank you all for joining us as we revisit the classic 1985 spaghetti western flop starring Joe Don Baker. No, this is an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. Right. Today we'll recap and review Season 4, Episode 7, Final Justice, where Walker leaves Texas and his badge behind to track down his parents' killer. But before we turn in our badges and seek out the finest bailing wire in Oklahoma, join us as we pull up a stool at CD's Bar and Grill. Fancy meeting you guys here. What's going on?
You know, just another week in paradise here.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that? I'd like to find that.
Well, you know, paradise is different for everybody, Evan. Mine is recording a Walker, Texas Ranger podcast with my best buds.
All right, anyways, this week, CD is serving up a red tape lager from Jack's Abbey Brewing Company in Framingham, Massachusetts.
Yum.
And the ham.
According to the menu, red tape lager has a full malty flavor typical of Bavarian dark lagers. Cold fermented in the 40s and lagered at freezing, a traditional spunding process allowed for 100% natural carbonation. Prost! You guys ready to check this thing out?
Oh, yeah. Let's crush it. Oh, crap! I just dropped my glass.
Oh, man.
You guys are going to have to rate this one on your own.
Oh, I guess we're the Prost with the most here.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
I don't care. I still have mine.
Yeah, it's fine by me. Ooh, I like that.
Don't rub this stuff in my face, guys. Come on.
Evan, you think this might be the best beer we've had on Roundhouse Roulette?
I'm not sure if it's the best we've had, but I think we say it is because Adam spilled his.
Exactly. Yep, it's true.
You guys are cruel.
I will say, after stumbling upon this beer, it's kind of a go-to. I dig.
It's your go-to?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I can see that. It is malty, but like it's not like too sweet, and it's like a really good balance, I think. I like it.
Well, I'm just really glad you guys are enjoying that. Not.
I'm enjoying it so much more.
Well, cool. We'd like to thank all the people out there who purchased T-shirts this past week. As we mentioned, for the month of March, we'll be donating all proceeds from our Roundhouse Roulette black T-shirt to recovery efforts in Texas. So if you're interested in sporting some fly shirts, head on over to roundhouseroulette.com and check out the merch and help us try to help Texas a little bit. They need a little love.
And Adam, remind us, these are small batch.
Yeah, these are mom and pop shop silk screened here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I personally kiss every T-shirt before I send it out.
So wash it when you get it.
Fortunately, they're pre-shrunk.
Yeah, I haven't gone so far as wearing the shirts for a day first, but if you guys want to donate extra money for Texas, I'll do that.
Maybe they could donate extra money to guarantee that you won't do that.
Yeah, you know, just hit us up with your special requests via roundhouseroulette@gmail.com, and we try to accommodate here, especially for the cost.
Moving on, it seems like we've got quite a bit of banter to get to here.
Checking in on the socials, we shared up Adam Lauritsen's awesome illustration of a Ford Bronco jumping over the roof of an El Camino from the episode
The Juggernaut. And as we discussed, we believe that the Bronco is the Juggernaut itself.
Most definitely. In response to the epic picture that Adam illustrated, Eric Radford said, I hope Brad's got insurance on that one. And Brad being the wife beater and driver of the Bronco, because he really messes that Bronco up.
It messes up the El Camino even more.
And it's got CD in it,
So while I was kind of going back and forth on the socials with a number of folks about the amazing Ford Bronco in the episode The Juggernaut, I was tagging all our posts and stuff, and I came across a band named White Ford Bronco, and I've got their Twitter feed pulled up here. What's their tagline there?
Kicking out the 90s like it fell asleep on the bar.
That's great.
And I checked them out. They're a Washington, D.C. 90s cover band. I checked out a few of their videos, and they're good. We'll definitely be sharing up one of their 90s party jams this week. But speaking of somebody who actually owned a Bronco, we sold another Ranger Teen Camp sweatshirt. There are now 2 Ranger Teen Camp sweatshirts in existence.
That's amazing.
For the record, these are not hand screen printed, so
Are these like shipped straight from China?
yeah,
Exactly.
these are on demand.
Shout out to Mignon, and hopefully she's also cruising the internet for Ford Broncos, because that was a big mistake to get rid of that vehicle.
You know it's still running.
Oh, somewhere. Yeah, most definitely. But her husband is a director, and she's also worked with him as a script supervisor on a number of things, and he reached out to us on Instagram, and his name is Kevin Monroe. Really cool guy. They've been watching the series from the beginning, and so they're, I'm sure, picking up a lot more subtlety and gradual themes than we are. But he had a few things he wanted to put up to us here. He's like, what happened to the original Uncle Ray? The actor didn't die. Kind of screams of a contract dispute. In our podcast on the episode Rainbow Warriors, we talk about this, and it kind of seemed like maybe Floyd Redcrow Westerman just wasn't cool with Walker being a Native American blood brother.
It's possible.
Yeah, he's like, you know what, guys, I'm out. I think I'm just going to roll with that. That's what happened. Kevin also sent us a pitch for what they should have done with the reboot.
Pitch for the reboot as it should have happened. It's all with the new Martinez partner, the only hope that reboot has of a heart. She needed to be at least part Native American. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit and right there in the mythology. Her last name is Firewalker. Natch, bonus lore points. But she changed it to Walker as she hasn't fully accepted her native lineage yet. Team her up with whatever the Jared character is supposed to represent, but totally let him unleash like the crazy and unpredictable, maybe with less police brutality, as the OG Walker. A reminder of times past and how we have to evolve, yada yada. But they should have made it her show. If they don't care about what it used to be and are trying to differentiate, adding a new procedural crime drama with a white male lead is probably the last thing that's going to resonate in 2021 if you're trying to nail an intellectual property. Firewalker, Texas Ranger, humbly submitted.
That's pretty legit, especially with this episode. We kind of get into the Firewalker lore of the original Walker Texas Ranger, so I like that he's tying it in there. Also, I've seen some articles online reviewing the reboot of Walker that pretty much say that the Martinez character is Walker. And one of the other things he mentioned was, we hit the jetpack episode last night. If you're on jetpacks on only your 3rd season of stories, there is clearly no exit plan. That was hilarious. But yeah, shout out to Kevin and Mignon. And just can't believe there's another Ranger Teen Camp sweatshirt out there in the world now. Well, speaking of, jetpacks and Broncos.
Sweet new tech.
Exactly, yeah. As we mentioned on a previous podcast, my car got wrecked last year, and I was in search of a new car. And for a while, I was entertaining getting a Dodge Ram, obviously. But then I looked at my bank account, and I was like, yeah, I guess I'm buying a Kia Soul.
Yeah. It's a logical, responsible decision.
Yeah, and guys, it's not one of those nasty green ones. It's gray, and I might even say it's Walker gray.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
Unless you put that signature on the side of it, it's not Walker gray.
I'm definitely going to get one of those 4x4 stickers and put it on the back, And we're talking about how awesome his Dodge Ram Charger was in Lone Wolf McQuaid. with the hood ornament of the ram's head. I thought about getting one of those from IKEA. Anyway, for whatever reason, because I was researching cars and, Kia Soul, it looks weird, but it's functional for me. I needed the space, and I needed a cheap car. Opportunity presented itself, okay? I'm not saying these cars are great, but it works out for me. And, Evan, what did I drive before that?
Before that, you drove a Chevy HHR, which was like Chevy's knockoff on the PT Cruiser, which was a much maligned vehicle to begin with.
So I've already been driving around for 10 years in a ripoff of a PT Cruiser.
It didn't even have wood paneling either.
No, it didn't. I'm used to driving cars that I actually think look gross. And I would kind of say I'm not really into the style of the Kia Soul. But when you're driving it, you don't see it.
It's true.
So there's that. And long story short, I'm going through like my Google News feed, and this article comes up. The internet turned on the Kia Soul today, and things got mean. And people just started hating on this car.
I mean, I didn't catch this. I would have thought that people turned on it a while ago.
I know. Right?
It's like, it's been out for years. Like, what are they waiting for?
Exactly. Evan, do you want to take that first tweet?
Oh, yeah, that's a good tweet.
It
It
is.
says, PT Cruisers walked so the Kia Soul could run. Adam, you are uniquely qualified to actually weigh in on that topic.
Well, I actually took offense when people called my Chevy HHR PT Cruiser, because those are for losers.
Adam's handle to get out of his vehicle fell off. So to exit the vehicle, you'd have to roll down the window and open up the door from the outside and then roll the window back up with the door open.
Well, yeah, but I could have got it fixed, but it was a HHR. This one's pretty good. Thinking you found a parking spot, and then boom, a Kia effing Soul. Because they're really small, which I kind of like. It's really weird. I'm like, oh, inside it's very roomy in this car. You wouldn't think it was, but it's very spacious.
People are then posting up photos to try to deflect some of the blows to other vehicles like the Honda Element, which is a giant cube, or the aptly named Nissan Cube.
I forgot about the hamster commercials with the Kia Soul, but this person says, I like the Kia Soul. Bite me. Those hamsters were swagged out and having the times of their lives.
They sure were.
Well, I'm just glad that some people have raced to defend my new wheels. But, now I'm ashamed to drive it around.
No, man. You need to post something about how much you like your Kia Soul. And you need to get on the right side of history here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You can't just roll over. You just bought the damn thing.
I should jump in there. It'd be fun to start trolling. All right, I'm gonna get on that this week. We'll give you an update on my Kia Soul troll. Per our recent episode on Chuck Norris's Lone Wolf McQuaid, we heard from Francisco from the Talented Slackers, and he apparently had never seen the movie, but he thought the podcast was an experience. So glad he powered through.
That's a super fan right there.
That's really one of the reasons we do a full recap, is so hopefully you could still enjoy the podcast and follow the plot all the way through. But I told him I would totally be lying if we didn't cruise eBay after we stopped recording for Dodge Ram Chargers, because those things are fierce.
Pretty hard to come by, too. Not very cheap.
I also posted up that Lone Wolf McQuaid is streaming for free on YouTube, Tubi, and Pluto TV. So it's available out there for people to watch it. But Sharon's in the UK, and unfortunately, it's only in the US. But thankfully, she's got it covered on her Amazon Prime. So apparently that's universal.
Well, with that said, we've got plenty to cover ourselves this week, so let's get on into it. If you're watching along at home and don't want any spoilers for this episode, hit that pause button and watch Season 4, Episode 7, Final Justice, and come on back to us. Welcome back. Let's dig into this beast. This episode originally aired on November 11th, 1995, and it opens in the gym.
Oh, yeah. let's just say Walker's getting fit.
He's hitting the bag, right?
Yeah.
And he's also wearing a gray sweatshirt where he cut off the sleeves and he also cut off the neck.
That sounds like a Bill Belichick move. Huh?
It's a full Belichick.
Yeah, except Walker doesn't cheat.
So, yeah, Walker's, chilling at the gym, presumably on his day off, which, who are we kidding? There's never a day off. Case in point, Trevette walks in, and he's all like, hey, these guys down at the prison, they called up, and there's some guy there who wants to talk to you. He wants to talk to you real bad. He's with the Aryan Nation.
Is Trevette thinking, like, is Walker part of the Aryan Brotherhood? For a second,
And Walker's like, all right, guess I'm done here. And he cruises on down to the prison. And there's like this scrawny authority figure there who's like giving Walker the rundown on this guy. And he's like, man, he's like gone crazy. And he's found Jesus. And now the Aryan Brotherhood, they want to kill him. But he's a madman and he's crazy. And finally, Walker's like, what's his name? It's like, wait, you came all this way out here and you don't even know who this guy is? And who is it?
Silas Quinn, right?
Quint.
Was it Quint? I heard Quinn. I saw you wrote Quint, but I thought that was just a typo.
I initially heard Quinn as well, but then later on there was a T added.
Oh, they changed it?
I don't know. I get the
too.
sense, and we've gotten the sense before, that a lot of these names are kind of made up on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
This could easily be one of those.
And so this guy's like in solitary confinement, and Walker's kind of walking down the hall with the guy, giving the backstory on this guy about how bad he is. And the guy's like, are you sure you want to go in there alone?
Yes, they get down. He's like, Silas Quint, and Walker pauses for a second. And the guy's like, do you know him? And Walker's like, yeah, I know him. So they get to the end of the hallway, and there's like this isolation chamber or something, but it's clearly like these prop glass doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, we get this interesting camera angle where we're kind of looking and we see this guy who's guiding Walker to Silas, and then we see the glass door, and behind it there's a table with this guy sitting at it. This guy's all like, you sure you want to go in there alone? He's as unpredictable as a cobra and 3 times as crazy.
Doesn't he know he's talking to Walker, Texas Ranger? This guy is not afraid of anything. He's going to go in there alone.
Yeah, so Walker just walks right in, and the door slides out of the way, and they add some sound effects to it that are like, oh yeah, this is what like a electronic door would sound like on Star Trek or something. So this is what we'll use. Yeah. But clearly it's just like someone off camera just shifting the door, open and close. And Walker sits down and has what I think is one of the most entertaining 3 minutes of Walker, Texas Ranger I have ever seen.
It's a pretty intense conversation.
Yeah. I mean, Chuck Norris in this, he just sort of sits there and is his normal emotionless self. And this other guy, like, he lived in that room for weeks prior to this and only had like a Bible to keep him company. Like this guy, oh my God, he is amazing.
Yeah, so what does he say exactly?
It's not what he says, it's more how he says it. He's like, are you a believer, Walker? Do you read the good book? The Lord giveth and taketh. Like, whoa, what is happening here?
And Walker's going to like, stop wasting my time.
I wouldn't rush him. I mean, just let him go. I've got things I regret. Things I look back on. There was a carnival. And the music's like really dramatic. A carnival. And there was a man and a woman with a child. And the eyes of the child, they're your eyes. Anyways, this guy is just totally unbelievable. It's amazing.
And while he's saying that, it's flashing back to what happened, right? So we see a young Walker at a carnival with his 2 parents. And when he says, and I remember your eyes, it literally flashes to Walker's child eyes. and then back to current time.
Yeah, so basically what we're able to decode from this, maybe, is that this guy was in the posse of the man who murdered Walker's parents. And Walker's parents were murdered kind of randomly by a guy who I guess is a white supremacist. He had murder in his eyes.
Yeah, he was
had
crazy
to kill
that
something.
night. Something had to die that night. And we see Walker's father, who's Native American, and his mother is white. And apparently that set this guy off. And this crazy guy stabs Walker's dad and kills him. Walker goes in to protect him, and the mother tries to save him, and she gets killed. All the while, we're flashing back and forth between young Walker's eyes and current Chuck Norris's eyes, and the creepy just found God guy in prison, his eyes. I was loving this scene.
He delivers. Yeah.
He did.
I think that's like easily my favorite few minutes I've seen of Walker.
Yeah. I mean, granted, we don't like to see hate crimes against anybody, but this is Walker's backstory here. This is what created Walker, and I guess inspired him to become a Texas Ranger who knows karate.
Yeah, for sure.
And he could have become Batman, but he chose to be a Texas Ranger. So
exactly, yeah.
He has Batman's backstory, but he has Superman's powers.
Right. It's true. It's true.
That's true. That's so true.
He's like, why be human?
Yeah. So this backstory, which I think we also hear in the pilot episode, I can't remember. I'm looking forward to getting back to the pilot so we can kind of clear that up. Walker's backstory is Batman's backstory.
Pretty much, except for instead of being out at the movies, they were at the carnival.
Yeah. And instead of being rich, well, he could be a millionaire. We don't know. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so a lot of similarities to Batman's backstory. And we kind of see the origin of Walker, Texas Ranger.
We learn that Max Slater is the guy who killed Walker's parents and was kind of the ringleader of that group. And that Silas actually saved Walker's life because Max was going to kill Walker as well, but Silas was able to pull him away, and they ran away. Walker is still under the impression that Max Slater died in a car crash, but Silas informs him, "No, he alive."
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I guess Max Slater is crazy enough such that he faked his own death using his brother's body. So don't get any ideas at him.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to put you in my Kia Soul and roll you off a cliff, and then I'm going to, take your identity.
I wouldn't be caught living or dead in your Kia Soul.
That's definitely happening now.
I'm kidding. I really have very little opinions regarding the Kia Soul.
You can't backpedal from this, Evan. You're a dead man. I'm going to do exactly what Max Slater did.
No, he alive. Anywho, so this obviously is big news, and Walker has to get to the bottom of it. Of course, Silas doesn't know where Max Slater is, but now that he knows where Max Slater is alive,
that's all the information he needs.
Walker will do the rest, yeah.
So if we didn't get the entire backstory or the entire flashback during this bizarre interaction between Walker and Silas,
we get a Bruce Wayne special where he visits his parents' grave with some flowers, and somebody who's also a secondary character just happens to know that this is a time when Batman's visiting his parents' graves so they can facilitate the story, in which case Trevette shows up. And we're expecting to see Walker as the last name of his dead parents. But What did we see?
What was it? Firewalker, right?
Exactly. So he must have shortened his name at some point.
Seems like a missed opportunity. I would have stuck with Firewalker. Are you kidding me?
This is just like what Kevin was saying, that he was kind of distancing himself from his Native American roots. Or maybe, after his parents got killed, Walker got sent to Ellis Island. And they just said, "Oh, you're Walker now."
Yeah, they Americanized his name for him.
Yeah.
Do you think the Texas Rangers do that, maybe?
They could have a whole thing with that, too. But I'm going to believe Ellis Island.
Okay, so he immigrated to Texas from Oklahoma through Ellis Island.
It checks out.
Okay, cool. So yeah, he's got, the flashbacks there at his parents' grave, and then there's a bit of exposition there. Honestly, the studious among us would have picked up all of the details, but in case you fell asleep during the first 5 minutes of the episode, Trevette runs through it in about 10 seconds and says, "Oh, so the guy who killed your parents is still alive, and you want to find him, but you don't know where." And Walker's like, "Yep."
As long as I know someone's alive, anywhere in the world I can find them.
Yeah, pretty much. So back in headquarters, Alex and Trevette are there with Walker, and they're asking him, they're like, "What do you think you're going to do? Like, this happened years ago. You can't find this guy." And he's like, "Oh, no, I remember this guy, Duke Jameson. He was a rodeo guy, and he witnessed the murder, and I remember getting his help when I finally figured out what had happened."
But I feel like he was holding something back.
Right. Like, I'm going to go find him again. And they're like, "But that's, like, not what you should be doing. Like, this isn't an open murder investigation anymore," or whatever. So he's like, "Oh, I'm going to turn in my badge." So he just sets his badge down on his desk and walks towards the elevator. And Alex is like, "Walker, why are you doing this? Are you doing it for revenge? For retribution?" And Walker waits for about 20 seconds while he's frantically pushing the close elevator door button.
Yeah.
And just as it's closing, he says, "For justice."
And then the doors close. And as the doors close, the camera's framed so that it's the Texas Ranger star symbol. Oh, so good. Just like what you said at the beginning of the episode, where people were hand closing the doors. You could see that with the elevator doors too, because it wasn't like a steady thing. It was like kind of like a...
There are a lot of moments in this episode where I feel like they got the right shot at the right time. They had some very interesting shots throughout this whole episode.
But that was artfully done, and I wonder how many takes it took for him to say justice and the doors to close at just the right amount of time, framed with the logo. It was good, though. That was awesome.
So, yeah, Walker leaves there and heads to, I guess, interview Duke Jameson, who's at this point a washed-up old man who used to be the greatest rodeo dude. But now he just gets pushed around by 20-somethings who want him to go buy them alcohol. So, Walker's like, "Oh, I want some more info." And he's like, "Oh, I just, I don't know where Slater is now. He's bad news, but I don't know what's going on." And then these young toughs come around and they're like, "Hey, old man, go get us some whiskey." And he's like, "Arr!" And they push him over. And Walker's like, "You don't know who you're talking to. This guy was the best. Show some respect." And they're like, "Who is this guy?" And Walker quickly shows them who he is by kicking one guy into a cow patty and knocking another dude over. After he does that and they kind of slink away and he helps the old guy up, Walker looks over and there's just some blonde babe who's just, she like gives him this half-second look that's like, "Oh, I see you."
Right. Yeah.
And he gives this look back like, "Uh-huh."
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, who's this character and where is this going? The answer? Nowhere.
Yeah. That's the last we see of her.
Yeah, I was like expecting her to be part of the story.
Right. All right, so basically Walker saves Duke's bacon, and it looks like he's gonna get the girl, but Duke interrupts everything and is all like, "Hey, you really saved me. If you give me a ride home, I'll tell you more." So I don't know where Duke lives, but the next scene they're in the car and it's pitch black outside.
Is that because he doesn't want people to hear him or what? Or he was like propositioning Walker? I couldn't tell the difference.
Neither. I think Duke doesn't have a car and he just needs a ride home.
Yeah. And he was getting rides home by buying underage kids beer.
Yes, that's
probably, yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense.
We figured out his backstory. Oh man, he lives a pretty miserable existence. That said, though, like it was daytime when they left, and it was pitch black when you cut to this scene. So it's like, where does Duke live? He lives hours away from this place. Anyways, he's all like, "Well, I know that he's up in Oklahoma somewhere, and he's doing what he always does, which is running guns and ruining people's lives."
And this is Max Slater, right?
Yep. But now he's going by a different name. He's now known as Clint Murdoch. Once again, it's like it was taken out of an 80s action movie.
Yeah, these are great
bad
names.
guy.
That actually is it's a name upgrade. Max Slater. Well, actually, Max Slater and Clint Murdoch.
Both top 5 names right there.
Yeah, those are great names.
And so Walker's got his lead, but Duke starts clutching at his chest, and
We know what's going down. This old friend.
Walker's like, "What's going on?" And Duke's all like, "Oh, it's just these pains I've been getting."
You know, just like you do. He has a heart attack.
Yeah, Walker's going to take him into the purple hospital room.
And we're like, man, another old friend down. Again, doesn't pay to be Walker's friend or acquaintance.
Never. Yeah, so he goes to the hospital, and Trevette calls him, and Walker's like, "Oh, I got this new name. Look up what info you can find on Clint Murdoch."
A.K.A. Max Slater, a.k.a. guy who killed Walker's parents.
And this doctor comes around, and he's all like, "Duke needs to talk to you." So Walker goes in the room, and Duke is on a hospital bed, and he's got like 2 really fake-looking diodes that are like taped to his chest. And they've got like a 10-year-old oscilloscope or whatever.
Cardiograph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's all like, "Oh man, Walker, I really messed up. Like, I got out with Max Slater, but before I did, like, my daughter got raped by one of his guys, and she had the kid, and she's still living there. Here's a letter, and can you give this to her?" And Walker's all like, "Why do I need to give this to her?" And then he just like flatlines.
Yeah, it's like beep, beep. Yeah, but we knew it was going there. He's gone, and
Did we though? Like, he was stabilized after having a heart attack, and then he just like died.
it was kind of abrupt. It was, but I was glad it happened so we can move the story along.
Oh, for sure.
So Walker's got this letter, and he's taxed with finding Duke's daughter, who was raped by one of the henchmen of the guy who killed his parents. So this is already ratcheting up the stakes here.
There's a spider web of horribleness around Max Slater.
And we are climbing up the web, and we're trying to get to the center here.
Yeah, for sure.
And unfortunately, Duke, he got eaten.
He bit the big one.
He did, but before he died, he sloughed off all of his baggage onto Walker.
I lived a terrible life, and I made a ton of mistakes, and here, clean it up for me.
Exactly. Here are all the things I should have said to my daughter while I was still alive.
So yeah, Walker basically shows up to the town where Duke told him everything was going down, and he ends up at the Crazy Horse Saloon. Now, we've seen the Crazy Horse Saloon before, haven't we, boys? That
Have we?
still image of the saloon outside.
Was that from the
Juggernaut.
Juggernaut? Okay, yeah.
It's the same still.
Oh,
I had to pause it because I was pretty sure it was the same. And if you look at it, it's clearly from some other TV show or something, because the cars out front are like 1960s cars.
Yeah.
oh no. Oh my goodness. Wow. So some stock footage for the Crazy Horse Saloon.
Yeah. Now, I paused it because I wanted to see what the name of the saloon was, but all it says is saloon and tavern or something like that on it. But later on, it's referred to as the Crazy Horse. So,
Okay. It's been a while since we were able to pin down a name for a bar.
I know. They're always so colorful. Yeah, so what's going down inside the saloon here?
Looks like a pretty happening Friday night. That's what's going down, right?
Little honky tonk music.
Little two-step.
Do-si-do.
You guys catch the song?
Did not. Was it a real song?
I think so. I think I've heard it before.
Yeah. What's the name of it?
It's like, where there's smoke, baby, there's fire.
So good.
Oh, yeah. And so Walker goes in this bar and is just walking around about as awkwardly as you possibly can. And the people who aren't engaged in revelry are just sort of staring at him like, who is this outsider? And he walks over and he's like, "Are you Lori Jameson, who's Duke's daughter?" And she's like, "Yes." And he's like, "Your dad wanted me to give you this letter, and I want to talk to you after you read the letter."
And in the middle of that, like two goons kind of come up and say, is this guy causing you problems? And one's like a Weasley guy, and one's kind of like just a meathead guy, right?
Oh, yeah. The Weasley guy is played by veteran actor Mark L. Mayo, who plays a general in my favorite Schwarzenegger film, Total Recall.
Ooh.
But he also plays an alien on Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Yeah, he's pretty legit. His name in this episode is Lamar.
Were you guys surprised that Walker was accosted at the bar? I didn't see that coming. I didn't think they were going to go after him like that. Like Walker walks into a bar alone.
Well, you're right that he didn't have his Texas Ranger star, which is an open invitation to just swing at you. And so, the meathead's all like, do we have a problem here? And Walker's all like, I heard there's some heavy arms deals going down around here, and I want a piece of this action. And Ray's like, you got it wrong, man. This ain't no place for you. You need to leave. And they get into an altercation. And, things come to blows. And, Walker comes out on top. But he's about to sort of run a victory lap there when the leader of the group, Lamar, pulls a gun on him. And that's when Walker can have a real talk with, the real guys. And he's like, look, I don't want any trouble. I just want guns. The guy's like, man, you move real fast. Around here, fast will get you dead. But the contact has been set, and, Walker has established himself as a badass who's looking to buy some guns for his buyers. So,
and they're kind of like, hey, we're going to go talk to our boss, and we'll get back with you. Where can we find you? And Walker's like, don't worry, I'll find you.
Badass.
Totally.
So good.
So he just waits around in the bar like a super creeper for Lori to get off her shift. And she walks over and she's like, I read the letter. And Walker's like, yeah, by the way, he's dead. And then she's like, well, do you need a place to stay? And he's like, no, I'll just find a place. She's like, around here, you're not going to find a place. Our place is only big enough for me and my small son, but you can stay in the barn. And he's like, yeah, that'll work. Sure.
Pan to her house. And you're like, wait, what? Your house is like, it might as well be like plantation house.
Yeah, it's house that has a barn. It's like a farmhouse.
Right, it's a giant farmhouse.
And he doesn't have room for him in the same house.
Totally occupied by a single woman and her 5-year-old child. The next morning, we see a small child toddle around, and he starts peeking through the barn door. And he sort of sneaks up on this boy who's staring through the door, and he's like, you must be Zach. And they have a nice little sit down where Walker asks him about his mother and his father. And he's like, my dad usually makes me do things that makes my mom mad. And and Walker's like what? And he's like, well, he tells me that people who look different, they're not the same as us, and we shouldn't treat them well. And Walker's like, well, what do you think? And he's like, well, Mom says that everyone should be treated as an individual and that everyone's special.
Well, your mom's right.
Exactly, yeah.
I will say this little kid actually was a pretty good actor.
He's a real good actor. I thought so. He's like, my dad never takes me out fishing. Walker's like, okay, noted. And then Lori comes around, and he's like, oh, we got to have some adult talk. So he sends little Zach away to find some baling wire, which clearly is just busy work. And he's like, why don't you get out of town? And she's like, I got things keeping me here. And he's like, what? And then this Chevy Tahoe or Suburban or whatever cruises up super fast. And she's like, there's one of them right there.
Right. And it's not a Dodge, so we know this is a bad guy.
Exactly.
100%. And
it wasn't a Kia. This wasn't a Kia pulling up. This was a
Kia
Chevy.
Soul, and no hamsters roll out of it. Instead, it's Lamar and Ray, the skeezy guy and the meathead. And we learn that Ray is the father of this child, which means that he's the guy who raped Lori, and that's their son. So really messed up.
The fact that he's coming over there tormenting her, and he kind of kneels down and starts talking to Zach and is like, hey, I want to take you out. And
let's go to the rally. The white supremacist rally. They're gonna have hot dogs and ice cream for the kids.
It was so bad. And then, it was terrible. And Lori's like, no, you're not going to go with him kind of thing. And she kind of talks back, and Ray's like, tries to start something with her. And Walker's kind of like, no, you better watch yourself. What do you think you're doing?
And they're like, well, we're actually taking you to see the boss. So come with us.
You're like, okay, these guys are total trash. You can't trust them, but you're going to go with them.
Well, he's undercover. He's got to, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And he's already pissed him off twice.
He's just being a tough guy. They respect that.
It's part of the act.
Is this in the playbook?
Oh, totally.
Are you kidding? We've seen him undercover multiple times. It's always the tough, silent type.
All right. Well, anyway, for whatever reason, he's like, okay, yeah, these guys won't just kill me once I get in the car with them. So I'll go with them, and this undercover ruse will keep going on.
So they take him to see the big boss. And this is when we see Clint Murdoch, the murderer formerly known as Max Slater, in his element, firing off a shotgun. He's doing some skeet shooting.
Yeah, and he's a pretty good shot.
He's a great shot, yeah.
And this actor, did you guys recognize this guy?
Oh, totally.
He's in a lot of things, but in Nashville here, we have this really awesome small theater called the Belcourt Theater, and they would do horror movie nights. And recently they did one that you could stream from their website, and they did this horror movie called Curtains, and it dealt with a older movie director who was having kind of like a casting call at his private mansion in the winter. And the guy holding the casting call was John Vernon. He was the legendary director that all these young actresses are trying to, work their magic on to get the part. And a lot of them died. But he was pretty classic in it. And he has a Batman connection. Did you guys know this?
I figured you'd pick up on this one.
Yeah.
The animated series?
Mm-hmm.
I recognized him from Animal House. He was the dean.
I've actually got something pulled up here.
Ernest Goes to Camp.
That's right.
Yeah, so there's a scene in this episode that reminded me of Ernest Goes to Camp because John Vernon also plays the bad guy in Ernest Goes to Camp and is using a rifle. He's just randomly shooting at bottles, but he's also talking negatively about Native Americans. So
what do you know?
I recognized him from Dirty Harry. He's also in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So his career spans multiple genres and many decades.
Yeah, he's a good bad guy too, for sure.
All right, so this is where Walker finally meets his parents' killers face to face. And, presumably he tracked down this guy and then realized that he died in a car crash. So he never actually got to see him face to face after that fateful night at the carnival. But yeah, Murdoch is skeet shooting, and he's all like, this isn't really my idea of sport. My idea of sport is big game hunting. Just you and the animal. And Walker's all like, yeah, but you got a big gun. So he's got a mouth on him for sure.
For a hired gun, he definitely does. But also, I didn't realize that was foreshadowing at the time, but okay.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. This guy gives off serious, most dangerous game vibes. Yeah. 100%. Super rich, like, oh yeah, I hunt people in the woods, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Murdoch's like, do I know you from somewhere? And Walker's all like, no, I'd recognize you if we'd met before. So he plays it cool, as only Chuck Norris can. And Murdoch's all like, hey, you've got some pretty good skills, and I'm down a man because you broke his arm in the bar fight. So how'd you like to make double your profits and help out with this thing we're going to be doing tonight? And Walker's like, I'm listening. And he ends up being roped into an ambush on a military convoy with guns.
Somehow a bunch of rednecks are able to hijack a military convoy of weapons. Don't know how they're able to do it, but
yeah, they pull it off. But Walker's all like, well, I can't participate in this, and I should probably stop it. So he starts using their tear gas and all this other stuff against the hijackers. And he's about to pull off the upset when someone who he wasn't expecting came out from behind a truck and pistol whips him. So he comes to, and they're like, who is this guy? And they basically have him tied up, and they bring him in front of Murdoch again. And Walker reveals himself as the child of two of Murdoch's murder victims. And Murdoch's like, oh, I knew you were one of them half-breeds.
He's like, I see it in your eyes. Like earlier, they do the flashback to when he was a kid, and they show his eyes, and they show Walker's eyes now, and then they show Clint Murdoch's eyes, and you're like, man, how many eyes we're going to see, but you never forget the eyes.
So many eyes. So many eyes. Then he's like, well, we'll see how well you do without any food and water out in the sun. String them up.
Oh, my gosh. What happens here, Bob?
They string him up. No, they tie his arms, basically hang him from a big pole, and leave him out there. And they're like, how long do you think it'll last? It took about 3 days. And then Murdoch's like, I don't know, maybe 4. He's got that engine in him.
Oh, my God.
Like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, he's strung up there in the hot sun, I guess just like rope around his wrists. Is that right?
Yeah. And they show a lot of clips of someone's feet off the ground. But whenever they get like a distance shot with Chuck Norris in that position, his feet are clearly on the ground. So yeah, he's strung up there. And that night, Trevette's worried because when he hung up the phone in the hospital, Walker said he'd call him the next night, and his partner never called him. You know, they're talking at CD's, and CD's like, well, Walker never stands anyone up. And Alex is like, I have a really bad feeling. And Trevette's like, all right, I'm going. I'm his partner. I got to go.
He's got his back. Trevette's got his back, and that's awesome.
And meanwhile, back on the ranch, Walker is feeling his full-on vulture vision. He's staring at birds in the sky, and then he's seeing sort of heat mirages.
And what do we call this? We haven't seen enough of this yet. There's a ton of this in Walker Texas Ranger, but we just haven't spun it yet.
Like really bad digital overlay of traditional Native American dancers.
It's like a Native American spiritual hallucination.
Yep. And it is full on right now. And he's just like staring out at what looks like, I mean, we're meant to believe that it's like a still of the field that he's looking out at, but really it looks like a Windows 2000 screen desktop background.
Yeah.
And they've overlaid these dancers over it, and then this sort of bright star shape appears, and a bald eagle flies directly at the screen, and every time it flaps its wings, you hear this loud whoo, whoo, and it's sort of coming directly at him. This resonated with me a lot because I was out today and I saw a young bald eagle, and I feel like my experience was very similar to this. Right. There weren't dancers involved, but it was very similar to this. So, yeah, that bald eagle, I guess, transforms into his father, and then you see Walker's face, and he goes,
Cordell!
And he goes, Father!
Don't give up. It's not your time. Not your time.
That was beautiful. And no, it's really not. He somehow musters up the strength to climb up the ropes.
They only have 45 minutes. And this episode actually packed a ton in. So they kind of imply, like, by them saying, oh, I think he can last 4 days, that he's been out there a few days. But it really could have been a few hours. For all we know. But I kind of assumed he was at least there 1 day. So if you're hanging there and don't have enough energy to pull up the ropes and get out when you first get put in, how do you do that days later? I don't know.
The eagle spirit like flies into you.
Okay.
Yeah, it checks out. Yeah, I mean, physics aside, yeah, it's kind of impossible. But that's irrelevant. That's what Walker does best, is the impossible. And yeah, so he climbs up and I guess frees himself, but then sort of puts himself back in the position so it looks like he's he's still bound
strung up. And I guess he's just holding onto the ropes, but not really tied. He's kind of faking it. And this guy comes around. I don't know if we saw him earlier, but he's just like some younger, I guess, white supremacist. And he comes around drinking a bottled water. And it wasn't Seaforce water, but, you know, maybe this could have inspired Seaforce water. So he's drinking this bottled water. He's kind of taunting Walker, being like, "Oh, do you want some water? I bet you would." And then just after he says that, Walker just kicks him in the face. It's so good. The guy falls down flat. Walker jumps down, grabs the bottle of water, starts guzzling it because he's been out in the sun for presumably days. And Chuck Norris, the actor, says, "Someday I'm going to start a bottled water company."
And he's like, "Actually, I would like some water." There are a lot of one-liners in this episode, too. I'm digging on that. You may have thought that John Vernon's IMDb is something to behold. But I will say that Waterboy, played by Jimmy Ray Pickens.
That's his real name?
His name is Jimmy Ray Pickens. His career, far more exciting.
No way. John Vernon, he's seasoned, man. What do you got? What does this Pickens boy got?
How about tons of Marvel movies and RoboCop 2? In all of these films, for the most part, he is a film transportation staff person.
He's a bus driver.
But he does play extras in Avengers Endgame, and he plays an extra in RoboCop 2. So
yeah, so dude's got nothing on John Vernon, man. Come on.
Are you kidding? He's a driver for all these movies. So many movies. He's in Spielberg movies. He's in Marvel movies.
Yeah, but nobody knows who he is.
It's irrelevant. He's involved.
No, man. When you're freaking holding up a rifle in Ernest's face, you've made it. That's what he does in Ernest Goes to Camp. John Vernon. John Vernon is the man.
Okay. Well, anyways, this guy, I was kind of fascinated by his career, which is pretty interesting because he's just the water boy who calls Walker a half-breed and then gets kicked in the face. So he gets taken out, and then Lamar comes out and he sees the ropes where Walker was hanging up, and they're empty now. And he's like, "Murdoch, he's escaped." And then they look out in the field, and Walker's just in total non-Walker fashion. He's running out in the open.
But, I don't think he had an option.
I guess. But he's running away as fast as possible. And everyone mobilizes and starts shooting, but they clearly are too far away. And that's when Murdoch is all like, "Saddle up the horses. We're going hunting."
And this is when it turns into the most dangerous game.
Absolutely.
And this is what we look for in a Walker Texas Ranger episode, is when Walker is in the woods and has to systematically take out bad guys. So we're already like, okay, we've got the setup. The stakes are so high. We literally have the person who murdered Walker's parents. Walker has to just take out a bunch of bad guys in the woods, and we know it's all coming down to that bad guy at the end.
He does it all here, too. I mean, he does ambush kicks, tons of those. He does a tree jump. And after he does the tree jump, you cut back to Lamar and Murdoch, and Lamar's all like, "He's outnumbered 20-1. We'll bag him. We'll bring him down." And at that point, Walker graduates from doing a tree jump to doing a horse jump.
Oh, that's so good. He jumps on the back of a horse of one of the bad guys. He shoots another guy and then flips the guy off the horse.
Yeah.
And now he's on a horse with a gun, and you're like, oh, this is awesome.
He upgraded his situation a bit there.
Yeah.
For sure. He leveled up.
Went from being strung up in the hot sun for days to on a horse with a gun heading out.
Meanwhile, Trevette is showing up at Laurie's house, and he's all like, "Oh, man, I got to track down Walker." And he got Laurie's name because I guess Walker had talked about Duke Jameson. And so Laurie's the only person in town who's got the same name, Jameson. So he goes to her farmhouse and starts banging on the door. She answers the door, but Ray comes around the corner with a gun. And now he's got Trevette at gunpoint.
And you're like, oh, man, come on.
Why can't Trevette just do some serious ass kicking?
Yeah, you got to write him into a rut.
So Ray and another bad guy, they seem like they're fixing to do something real nasty to Trevette.
And they're like, oh, you're not Native American. You're black. We hate you more. Pretty much is what they're saying. You're like, oh, no.
Yep.
No, don't take out Trevette. And just as they're about to shoot Trevette, we see a familiar face around the corner. So I guess the guy's house is pretty close, right?
Well, he's on a horse, so Walker can get everywhere.
All right. So, yeah, Walker's around the corner, systematically starts taking out one of the guys, and then Trevette's like, oh, I'll follow your lead, and they start fighting the goons.
Walker, like, kicks or flips Ray, like, into this wooden trough, and I know it was, like, a stunt guy who did it. That looked like it killed. That looks so painful. He just gets thrown on this, like, wooden trough thing, and it breaks under his weight.
Oh, and Chuck Norris was probably like, are you okay, buddy?
Okay, take two.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I'm good.
We're going to do another take.
I wasn't happy with that one.
Yeah, so they tie him up, and then they're like, oh, we need to find the recycling plant. Because that's where the arms deal's going down.
There's an arms deal is going down to the recycling plant, and Lori knows where it is. So she directs Walker and Trevette there, and that's where we know there's going to be a showdown between Walker and Clint Murdoch, who killed his parents, finally. And I'm just going to say it now, man. I got some serious Batman 89 vibes out of this next scene.
Hey, Eckhard, what you think about the future?
Exactly. That's pretty much what happens, right? So Trevette and Walker, they show up at this recycling plant, which could also be Axis Chemicals from Batman 89. And are they faced with a few bad guys? What happens, Evan?
It's pretty vintage. They take some dudes out. At one point, they're like on top of a container, and they jump down on top of two bad guys. And then Murdoch realizes they're there, and he's like, get him, Lamar. And Walker just like sucker punches Lamar to the ground and then runs after Murdoch. We just saw how awesome a shot Murdoch was, right? Like he's
pinning
shooting from the hip.
Shooting like crazy.
And he's just like wildly firing his handgun towards Walker, but can't connect at all.
Well, you know, I mean, it's dark in there. It is dark. And he is older than Walker.
There's a scene where Walker's climbing up a ladder after him. Murdoch gets to the top of the ladder and fires down at Walker and still misses him. That seems...
It's dark. Yeah, and it's kind of like they're already, like, they keep climbing up these, like, industrial ladders with the frame around them so you don't fall kind of thing, and they get up one story, and then they go up another story, and all the while, Clint Murdoch's firing down on Walker, but finally, they reach the top, and Walker's, like, facing off with him. Clint Murdoch points his gun at Walker, and you're like, I know he's going to be out of bullets, come on. So he pulls the trigger, he's out, of course. And now it's down to an old man versus Walker, Texas Ranger. And it reminded me of the first podcast we've done. The first podcast we did was on an episode called The Guardians. And in The Guardians, Walker is fighting Patrick Swayze's brother. And he kicks him off the edge of an oil rig. And the guy looks like he's going to fall down to his doom. And this is exactly what happens here between Murdoch and Walker. You're like, oh man, Walker literally just kicked the person who killed his parents off this ledge in a factory, and this guy's going to die. And it'll be justified because, dude, this guy killed Walker's parents, you know? I kind of can sympathize with that. But just like in The Guardians, somehow Walker is able to kick somebody off a ledge and then jump down and grab their hand, right?
Yeah, it's like Jack Napier.
Okay, you guys really want to get down a wormhole?
We're there, so what do you got?
This is a connection to this episode and The Guardians. And the song Where There's Smoke. Where There's Smoke was written and performed by a man named Jeff Koch, who also did music for and performed for like Winnie the Pooh and some other things. He did voice acting and stuff. He did a lot of songs for Walker, Texas Ranger, including the songs in Circle of Life, which is an episode we did. And he did Final Justice. He's the performer of Where There's Smoke and the performer of Memories of What Might Have Been. He did a few other episodes, but we haven't cast on any of those yet. But the only episode of Walker where he acted in is The Guardians. And he's the guy who says, "You lost or something?"
Oh, dude.
And that's the guy who did Where There's Smoke. So there you go.
I remember that guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. That's awesome.
It's got John C. Reilly vibes going on.
He totally does, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, this the hand-to-hand combat doesn't work so well, and that's when Murdoch pulls out his trusty switchblade, the same one he used to murder Walker's parents.
And did they do another flashback to the murder again? Because they like to tie those in when they
they're
can.
really big on that.
Yeah.
So Walker's like, come on, you know how to do it. And Murdoch takes a swing at him. Walker grabs his wrist and does the pressure point thing, where he's forced to drop the knife. And he does. And then Walker flings him, and he goes flying off the side of the railing. And, the angle and trajectory that he takes flying off, it would be impossible for him to actually grab onto anything.
Yeah.
He is just gone, man.
He's launched.
But apparently he's hanging on to something, and Walker grabs his wrist. And Trevette, of course, is staring from 300 feet down, staring up oh my God, what is happening
And Trevette
right now?
knows the situation. He knows this is the guy that killed Walker's parents. So he's like, don't do it. Don't do it, Walker. Don't do it.
Walker eventually pulls him up, and he doesn't let him fall into the trash compactor like Splinter does with the shredder. So.
I'm proud of you, my son.
Mufasa?
Oh, man. And, Walker pulls him up, and he's like, I'll let a court decide your fate. Cut to Walker at his parents' graves yet again. And, he had already thought that he'd resolved everything. But resolving things again, Trevette's like, man, I really thought you were going to let him fall there for a minute. And Walker's like, I did too, but I remembered something my father said. Only God has the right to judge.
Only God has the right to judge.
And there's an awkward silence, and I thought, oh, there's going to be another line or something. And there wasn't.
Freeze frame. Slow zoom in on the face, freeze frame, and we're out.
We'd like to give a shout out to our friend and collaborator, Adam Lauritsen. He's the one who's been drawing the amazing Walkerstrations that we feature on our social media. Be sure to check out his other art on Instagram at @ImaginationRunAmok. This week's illustration is particularly wonderful. So
this definitely highlights John Vernon.
Oh, yeah. It's got John Vernon. It's got Mark Alimo of Total Recall fame. And it even has the gas mask. So there you go.
Walker taking out bad guys in a gas mask. So that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty good.
Check it on our Instagram.
When we come back, it'll be time for us to each rate Final Justice on a scale of 0 to 10 boots to the face, resulting in our patented Roundhouse Roulette episode ranking, the complete results of which are available on our website, roundhouseroulette.com. Don't go away.
He asked for you by name. Are you sure you want to go in there alone?
Sure I am.
Okay, but he's the craziest of the bunch. They used to call him the Wild Bird Boy. Supposedly, in solitary confinement, he's found God. And being raised up on eagle's wings and all, he's been repenting for his sins. Best of luck to you, Ranger.
Hey there, Ranger. Are you a believer? I've been waiting for you and your fellow podcast listeners. The Lord doth work in mysterious ways, does he not?
Shut your pie hole and tell me why I'm here.
Well, you know the man who killed your father.
Yes?
Well, if you sit through this almighty advertisement, I may reveal unto you a secret of great interest.
Make it quick. We've got a podcast to get back to.
While sitting here in my cell, one thing has kept me going alongside my well-worn Peterson field guide. Roundhouse Roulette. These guys have pledged to and do deliver the light of Walker, Texas Ranger, to the world. If you'd like to lend them a hand in that mission, please share the podcast with a friend or leave them a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're not in prison and can actually choose your own clothes, they've recently added some fresh new merchandise at roundhouseroulette.com, or for as little as $2 or a pack of cigarettes a month, you can get into further antics and support the pod on their Patreon page. Most importantly, though, they thank you for listening.
You done?
I reckon. So your father's killer?
Joe Chill?
Yes. He goes by Jack Napier these days, and he's running silk for Carl Grissom in Gotham City. Except, here's the skinny skin. Carl's got him set up as a fall guy tomorrow night at Axis Chemicals.
How do you know all this?
I did say the Lord doth work in mysterious ways, don't he, Ranger? I highly recommend dressing as a human bat/cobra when you bring him in. He hates those things.
You better not be lying. Come now, podcast listener, we best get on our way to the Dodgemobile.
And Ranger, never you forget, you're my number one.
Oh, I almost forgot my lucky deck. Later.
And welcome back. Time for us to talk about what we thought about this one.
What do you got, brother?
I dug this one. It was jam-packed. You know, it had flashbacks, and not a huge fan of flashbacks in Walker episodes, but they weren't like 20-minute flashbacks. They were more like flashbacks. They're kind of like superimposed over the actual show. So that was fine. But yeah, this one kind of checked off a lot of the boxes. Had some pretty sick fights. Walker went, quote, undercover. We had his Native American heritage, including animal sounds and weird superimposed images of animals. And, you know, let's not forget the most dangerous game aspect of the second act of this episode, which was on point, 100%. So, yeah, I'm in on this one. I'm not sure I want to rate it super high because it definitely sort of, I don't know, there was maybe a little too much going on. Then again, I just remembered the dude at the beginning. And yeah, I think if I wanted to get anyone hooked on Walker, Texas Ranger, I would make them watch the first 5 minutes of this episode. So yeah, I'm going 8 on this one. I'm digging it.
Yeah, I really like this episode. I'd almost say it is definitely one of the better Walker episodes. And the cherry on top is that they actually add to Walker's backstory and flesh it out, which doesn't usually happen. Usually the episodes are standalone stories that don't connect to anything else. Well, this is a story that sticks to everything else we see from Walker from here on out and establishes his backstory. And they make it a pretty adventurous ride along the way, all in 45 minutes. And they don't waste a single moment of this episode at all, which is a pretty big milestone for this show to say that. And I was kind of in between 7 and 8 for this one. So I'm giving it an 8 as well.
Nice. Yeah, don't forget we also saw his old friend flatline in a hospital. Like that happened too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I'm quite as high on this as you guys. I was leaning more towards like a 6. I think my expectations were too high, and I thought that the origin story would be a little more interesting instead of just the Batman origin story. But at the same time, the Batman origin story was great. So
A tale as old as time.
yeah. And yeah, some of the pacing was a little chaotic for me, but overall, we did have spirit visions and birds and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, not quite as high, but definitely above average. Put it that way.
Yeah. And I can see that too, because in order to set up all the awesome stuff that happens at the end, it was kind of a slog after that awesome intro, but that guy's acting performance kind of let you get through it.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Yeah, he's like so over the top.
Why didn't you look up what that guy's done?
I kind of was hoping he was going to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I assumed he was like, he's in jail, but no, he'll escape and he'll be like he'll be the guy that killed Walker's parents. And
yeah, I kind of was assuming that too, but that's not the case. He was just a rando dude.
But the actual bad guy, just seeing him in those other movies, he didn't really rise to his full potential in this. He's just a great bad guy. He could have done a little better too.
So what does that give us, Evan?
That gives this episode a final Roundhouse rating of 7.333 boots to the face. Well, I think we can all agree that sunstroke is the solution to most of life's problems. But please do let us know what you think on social media or by emailing us at roundhouseroulette@gmail.com. When we come back, we'll spin that Roundhouse Roulette wheel and select next week's episode. And we're back. Bob, you ready to spin that wheel?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Goddamn.
Season 2, Episode 11, The Legend of Running Bear.
I've got high hopes.
There's restlessness on the reservation when Walker's cousin, David Little Eagle Jackson, returns from medical school and shortly thereafter witnesses the murder of his girlfriend's father.
We hope you'll join us next week when we share our reactions to Season 2, Episode 11, The Legend of Running Bear. Share your opinions with us on Facebook and on Instagram at Roundhouse Roulette and on Twitter at Roundhouse Pod. And rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get these things. Thanks for listening, and until next week,
may the eyes of the Ranger be upon you.
When you're in Texas, look behind you. Oh, 'cause that's where the Ranger's gonna be.